Dean Yast. Dean R. Anna presides over the 24th day of the month and gives it her name. She is invoked in company with Kista, and, in fact, this Yast, though it bears the name of Anna, is consecrated as Kista in verses 2 and 7. These two, it says genie, but we're referring to the light beings here, not the fire beings, so genie is our way of saying jinn, so no. However, very closely connected in their nature, as Ta'ana is the impersonation of the Zoroastrian law, our religion, and Kista is religious knowledge, the knowledge of what leads to bliss. Far Ganak Nirvanagnana is the same as Kista. And remember, a lot of this, the anti-personal self is described as the other gender. When you're talking about this myth, it's usually described like that. So if it was a female speaking, so the usual, but it's males who are reciting these things for the public and stuff like this, so it became natural that it was thought of in the female sense. The description of Kista is rather pallid. She does not rise above abstraction. While Meher Yast, in verse 126, takes things a little more, because obviously once you start personifying, you want to idealize the feminine and masculine and animal forms, right? To perhaps something that couldn't possibly be incarnate, She was not worshipped by the old epic heroes as Anahita was, but by Zarathustra and his wife, because she must have been, from her very name and nature, of Zoroastrian origin and growth. Well, Zarathustra, two things about him, three things about him that kind of differ from these is, one, he was into the whole pure monotheism. You don't, invoke and worship and some of these terms have connotations that aren't as common nowadays, so you don't feel like saying that. But, he didn't want anything treated as a god other than Mazda. The hymns, they may have mentioned the memory of some other entity or some good things in life or whatever, but the hymns, the praise, the celebrations, they were all for Mazda. There weren't days of the week or month or something that were for this entity or that entity. They were all for Ahura Mazda. So these elaborate rituals, that really wasn't the thing either, was it? At least not as in terms of requirements. If there was scripture, passing on the scripture, but brief rituals that everybody could stop every few hours or something and do, in the 5 watches of the night and day and do those things. Perhaps occasional longer things, but just, it didn't require a professional priesthood that, 3-hour rituals and the ritual drug use and a lot of the stuff that, and certain implements, the modest clothes you have on your back, whatever fire you got in front of you, if you have a fire to keep you warm, you don't even have to use the fire, by the way. 0. May Ahura Mazda be rejoiced, and so on. Hashem Vahu, holiness, the best of all good, and so on. I confess myself a worshipper of Mazda, a follower of Zarathustra, one who hates the Da'avas and obeys the laws of Ahura, for sacrifice, prayer, propitiation, and glorification unto Havana, the holy and master of holiness, and so on, to the most right Kista, made by Mazda and holy, and to the good law of the worshippers of Mazda, be propitiation from me, for sacrifice, prayer, propitiation, and glorification. Yatta Ahu V'Aryo, the will of the Lord is the law of holiness, and so on. 1. We sacrifice to the most right Kista, made by Mazda and holy. We sacrifice to the good law of the worshippers of Mazda, the supplier of good stores, who runs quickly to the goal and frees one best from dangers, who brings libations, who is holy, clever, and renowned, speedy to work and quick of work, who goes quickly and cleanses well, the good law of the worshippers of Mazda, 2. To whom Zarathustra did sacrifice, saying, Rise up from thy seat, come forward from the abode, thou most right Kista, made by Mazda and holy, if thou art before me, stay for me. If thou art behind me, overtake me. 3. Let everything be as friendly to us as anything can be. May we go smoothly through the forests, and cross happily the rivers. 4. For her brightness and glory, I will offer unto her a sacrifice worth being heard, namely unto the most right Kista, made by Mazda and holy. I will offer a sacrifice unto the most right Kista, made by Mazda and holy, with the libations, with the ha'uma and meat, with the barisma, with the wisdom of the tongue, with the holy spells, with the words and deeds, with the libations, with the well-spoken words. Yanhe hatam, all those beings of whom Ahura Mazda. 2, 5 through 7. Section 2, we sacrifice unto the most right Kista, made by Mazda and holy. We sacrifice to the good law of the worshippers of Mazda. So, see, we're taking part in maintaining the path. It's not that we're worshiping, we're worshiping a good principle. We're taking a good principle as our God and all this stuff. No, that's not really what we mean. 6. To whom Zarathustra did sacrifice for righteousness of thought, for righteousness of speech, for righteousness of deed, and for this boon. 7. That the most right Kista, made by Mazda and holy, would give him the swiftness of the feet, the quick hearing of the ears, the strength of the arms, the health of the whole body, the sturdiness of the whole body, and the eyesight of the kara fish that lives beneath the waters, and can measure a rippling of the waters not thicker than a hair, in the Vranga, whose ends lie afar, and whose depth is 1,000 times the height of a man. For her brightness and glory, I will offer unto her a sacrifice worth being heard. And 3 is 8 through 10. 8. We sacrifice to the most right Kista, made by Mazda and holy. We sacrifice to the good law of the worshippers of Mazda, and so on. 9. To whom Zarathustra did sacrifice for righteousness of thought, for righteousness of speech, for righteousness of deed, and for this boon. 10. That the most right Kista, made by Mazda and holy, would give him the swiftness of the feet, the quick hearing of the ears, the strength of the arms, the health of the whole body, the sturdiness of the whole body, and the eyesight of the male horse, that in the dark of the night, through the rain, the snow, the hail, or the sleet, from as far as 9 districts, can perceive a horse's hair, mingled with the earth, and knows whether it is from the head or from the tail. For her brightness and glory, I will offer unto her a sacrifice worth being heard. Section 4 is 11 through 13. 11. We sacrifice to the most right Kista, made by Mazda the holy. We sacrifice to the good law of the worshippers of Mazda, and so on. 12. To whom Zarathustra did sacrifice for righteousness of thought, for righteousness of speech, for righteousness of deed, and for this boon. 13. For the most right Kista, made by Mazda and holy, would give him the swiftness of the feet, the quick hearing of the ears, the strength of the arms, the health of the whole body, the sturdiness of the whole body, and the eyesight of the vulture with a golden color, that, from as far as 9 districts, can perceive a piece of flesh, not thicker than a fist, giving just as much light as a needle gives, as the point of a needle gives. For her brightness and glory, I will offer unto her a sacrifice worth being heard, and so on. 5. 14 and 15. 14. We sacrifice to the most right Kista, made by Mazda and holy. We sacrifice to the good law of the worshippers of Mazda, and so on. 15. To whom the holy Havova did sacrifice with full knowledge, wishing that the holy Zarathustra would give her his good narcotic, that she might think according to the law, speak according to the law, and do according to the law. For her brightness and glory, I will offer unto her a sacrifice worth being heard, and so on. And the opium ephedra marijuana blend that contained, 37 other plants according to one variation, certainly had healing properties of different sorts, and certain pharmaceutical companies do use some of those plants to this day. Not just the three mentioned, that in the East was called soma. Of course, some people consider the Iranian, the side of the Persian Gulf people, Persians, the East, but really, as far as the breakdown of culture and stuff goes, they're on the West, because these four tribes went here, this tribe went here, and influenced Indo-Europe, and influenced Africa, and influenced so drugs for healing purposes, that's different. But of course, I'm not saying don't consult your doctor, because certainly consult your doctor, and some of this stuff might be illegal. 6. And, if it's illegal, you're not going to get good quality, probably. 16 through and 17. We sacrifice to the most right Kista made by Maza, and holy we sacrifice to the good law of the worshippers of Maza, and so on. 17. To whom the Apravans sent afar to sacrifice, wishing a good memory to preach the law, and wishing strength for their own body. For her brightness and glory I will offer unto her a sacrifice worth being heard, and so on. Section 7 is 18 through 20. We sacrifice to the most right Kista, made by Maza and holy. We sacrifice to the good law of the worshippers of Maza, to whom the king of the country, the lord of the country, does sacrifice, wishing peace for his country, wishing strength for his own body. For his brightness and glory I will offer unto her a sacrifice worth being heard, and so on. 20. Yata ahu va'erio, the will of the Lord is the law of holiness, and so on. I bless the sacrifice and prayer and the strength and vigor of the most right Kista, made by Maza and holy, and the good law of the worshippers of Maza. Hashem Bahu, holiness is the best of all good, and so on. Of that man, brightness and glory, give him long life, give him the bright, all happy, blissful abode of the holy ones. And I think we are still on the... Are we still on the Farvardin Yast in the commentary? But the Farvardin Yast, yes. So we'll catch up a little bit here. By Zarathustra were begotten 3 sons and 3 daughters. One son was Issa Devastar, one Ur Vatadnar, one Khurshid Kihar. As Isad Vastar was chief of the priests, he became the Mobid of Mobids, and passed away in the 100th year of the religion. Ur Vatadnar was an agriculturalist, and the chief of the enclosure formed by Yim, which is below the earth. Khurshid Kihar was a warrior, commander of the army of Peshyotanu, son of Vistasp, and dwells in Kangdes. And of the 3 daughters, the name, one was friend, of one street, and of one Porukist. Ur Batadnar and Khurshid Kihar were from a serving Kakar wife, and the rest were from a privileged Daksha wife. And so Enquatil mentions this threefold seed of Spitma Zarathustra. But that detail alone indicates something. I mean, forget we can talk about the Kayanians and some other people that go further back, and we're talking towards their closer to their origins than otherwise, right? This proves the Achaemenid period was not when this happened. And some of the other details prove that the Magian period was also a revival. That's 1700 BCE to 2000 BCE. yeah, that was a revival period too, and there's linguistic reasons and stuff too, but, so, Vistaspa was a king of Bactria, the champion of Zoroastrianism. Because remember, Zoroastrianism, from the ancient time, did it start in Azerbaijan and go to Afghanistan, or did it start in Afghanistan and go to Azerbaijan? It's hard to tell. But in that region, there was said to be like in the Islamic tradition, they believe in like 5 great antichrists. Well, to give it the Christian term, and there's one to come. But one of the ones that came was among the Sakyas, the Gug or Magug peoples. Druga Purvanka is possibly the spear pushed forwards. And there's the reading Druka for verse 99, which we're seeing listed as Drug. And then we're seeing the mention of who took her, the religion. Just like in Christianity, they talk about the church as a woman. It doesn't mean the church is a woman, whether you're talking about the hero shrine or something else. Hunus is the generic name of the people elsewhere called Revadakas or Havyanas. The Hunus have been compared with the Huni, but it is not certain that it is a proper name. It may be a disparaging denomination, meaning the brood. And there's the generic Za'ire Va'ire is the generic name of the people. Oh. Hands of the Hunus and the oh, okay. We had the same note repeated twice. Za ere va ere. Zarir is the brother of Vistaspa and the son of Arurvat Aspa. The 10 following seem to be the names of the other sons of Arurvat Aspa. And further on in verse 101, we have Buge Strava, which is possibly the same as Pat Kosrav, a brother to Vistaspa, and the Yadkar-e Zariran. See, we have that Iran, name there. But as far as the Khosrov part, the Horstan or whatever, who's ever conquered the whole thing? Genghis Khan conquered through it, but since these people. Gustahim, the son of Nodar. Strangely enough, Tusa is not mentioned here unless he is the same with one of the preceding names. Possibly the words the son of Naatara, Naatairyana refer to all 4. And in verse 102, Fras Ham Vareta is possibly Frashidvard, as if it's a misspelling from the Pahlavi form Frasavard. The Yadkar-e Zariran, as Mr. West informs me, has, and, Frashidvard was the son of Gustasp. He was killed by one of Argasp's heroes and avenged by his brother Isfendyar Spentodata. The following names would belong to his brothers. Most of them contain the word atar in honor of the newly adopted worship of fire. Well, worship with fire, you don't actually find among the Persians the worship of fire, unless you mean respect. But they didn't. Fire wasn't a god, you know. There may have been angels connected to the power over such, but you know, they didn't worship the fire itself. Isfendiyar, the heroic son of Augustasp, killed by Rustem in the Yadkar-i Zar-Iran, according to Mr. West. Bastvar, the son of Za-Ire, whose death he avenges on his murderer, Bid Raths. This makes Basta-Va'ere identical with the Nastur of Firdausi. Read Mestur. Kaba Razem is the Gorazm of later tradition, the jealous brother of Isfendiyar, whom he slandered to his father and caused to be thrown into prison. Burhan Ba Te Firdausi 432 has only that he was a relation to Gus Tasp. And particularly if the guy's writing an epic, people are like, oh, well, this Nito wasn't in Firdausi. It's like, oh, come on. Well, Shahnameh, right? And 83 is in verse 103, Frasha Astra, who gave his daughter Havove in marriage to Zarathustra. And then we have Ava Ra Astra, is another brother to Frasha Astra, the son of Gamasp. In the Shahnameh is called Garami and Garamik card in the Yadkar-i Zar-Iran. And we have the withstanding evil in verse 104, A-O Ura, as possibly the thing, the Hamidpate of verse 105. In Parsi is Herbad, a priest whose special function was to teach the pupils. And his pupils were called A-Etriya. A-Etrapate meant literally the master of the hearth. Her Kodah, the fire temple. Hamidpate, or Hamidpate, is literally the master of the sacrificial log. Like, remember all that stuff about Yule, and you burn the Yule log and all that stuff. You know, want to keep the fire going. Not because the fire is like some sort of god or something, but because, you know, good situation for the you know, the spiritual operations to keep a nice warm fire in your place of worship. And verse 105, which is different from the Belial stuff in the Bible and elsewhere. The idea no Lord, no Master agrees with these people. There's no temporal Lord, Ahu, and no spiritual Master, Ratu. Fine, these the people who do this end up worshiping the demons, but or they claim themselves as a god and worship the demons, pretend they're not worshiping the demons. Well, they at least serve them, you could say. By worship, I'm confusing the 1800s use of worship as respect and mention and all that, and perhaps referring to words. Just think of that, mention that. In Arabic, in the Quran, you have, you know, mentioned this. It's not, so there's no confusion in translations over here and some other text, but anyways, there's doubt in terms of this phrase that's next, the to be broken, the avaskasta, pravashanam, but there's evil done by Zoroastrians. This Mathavaka, the proclaimer of the holy word, was apparently a great doctor and confounder of heresies. Because people aren't perfect. Even if the path is perfect, people aren't perfect, so let's be careful about that. And so in verse 107, we're talking about the... this is... 106. The Gallant, Karesna, is the eponym of that great Karen family, which played so great a part in the history of the Sassanian times and traced its origin to the time of Gustasp. And we're not talking about the racial slur Karen or anything, but perhaps that's the origin of the name, not the modern, not the recent use by a racist Lives Matter group, but yeah. Amru and Kamru are apparently the two mythical birds mentioned under the names of Sin Amru, the Amru falcon, and the Kamros. And we're seeing that name repeated. Mr. West compares Asha Vango, the son of Vivan Danga, and Garo Dangu, the son of Pa Eristira, with the two high priests of the Karshvaras of Arezahe and Savahe, whose names are, in the Bundahist, Asha Shagahad Havand Khan and Ha Azza Ro Dath Hare Parest Yaro. That last A is the short A, but and the it's the long one, but and we have that same note repeated for the next one, and for very fitting for the Saushant, the Astvat Arata has the 1001 note, and perhaps the Ham Baratar Van Gvam is the holy Ham Baratar Van Gvam, the son of Takma. His name means the gatherer of good things. And then we have Sta'otar Vahestahe Ashyahe as the praiser of excellent holiness. So, the reciter of the Eshem Bohu, and one of the 7 immortals, rulers of Havan Naratha, is the son of Pouru Thakste. Or maybe they don't mean the son, but they mean just Pouru Thakste. And there's Fravasha, and Sa Yustre in verse 113. And then we have mention of it may not be the Turanian, but the sons of the Turanians. or it might be just the son, and by extension, I guess, his kingdom, because there's a lot of talk about in these ancient stories, like, oh, this king did this and this king did this. Well, they had generals do it, and that sort of thing. And we have the Faravashya of the preceding page mentioned. When we're talking about the Faravashyas of the holy Zrahya and Spento Kratu. And again, we're referring to the Saoshyant with Astvat Areta. And Ukshan, the conqueror of glory, known afar, the son of Merezvant. And Vidist Rava. So one of the immortals, you could say, like the Titan thing, the holy Yoista, and in verse 120, in Avendaratha, it's said to belong to the Furyana family. He resides in the district of the river Na Ivtak. And there's a lot of reference to people that live thousands and tens of thousands of years and stuff like this in some of the Hindu texts. Pa Itis Rira is perhaps an epithet meaning most beautiful, added to distinguish Pa Eshata from the hero mentioned in verse 115. And then there's a legend in the evil done by one's kindred to end that verse as some sort of domestic feud in which Pa Eshata was the hero. The highest priest of the Fradavshu Karshvara Us Po Sinan Spita is the name given here. And the high priest, Uspasnu, of the Vidandavshu Karshvara, Iris Rasp Us Posinan. I guess I have to stop here and we'll share more of the notes as